Hey folks, we are out in nature today. I'm bathed in beautiful sunlight and even a little bit of fog. Giving me spa vibes today, but decided to take some of my houseplants outside because it is finally spring and some of my plants enjoy being outside even if it gets to be around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which is approximately 10 degrees Celsius at night. A lot of the succulents and the cacti could totally handle those temperatures. So if you recall, I did a video on the sister of these plants, not really the sister, but it was an aloe that I got at a big box store and it unceremoniously died. It got some type of root rot, whether it was bacterial or fungal, we will not know, but it unfortunately died. And I might as well have showed that because that stuff happens. But these Euphorbia, I have two Euphorbias right here that I bought during my time when I was at the big box store picking up renovation stuff and getting sidetracked with plants. How many times has that happened to everybody? So I have this Euphorbia, and this one had a cultivar name, interestingly enough. It was called Briar Patch, which is a pretty good cultivated variety, but this to me looks like some type of terracotta type. You'll know that as like the pencil stick cactus, but this is a coralliform as well as this one, which is the xylophalloides. And these are both from Madagascar. They probably originate in Madagascar, but somebody probably grew these in a greenhouse. But this is a plant from Madagascar. And I've been there. Unfortunately, I haven't been to as many beautiful places in Madagascar as I would have liked to go because so much of that place is that I've seen it had been deforested. So that's really something to really think about when we think about our houseplants is where they come from, understanding a bit more of their environment, whether they are red listed, which means whether they're rare or under conservation, and a bit more of the plight of plants, if you will. I think it's always good to think about. But today we're going to be repotting these, and I'll talk a little bit more about these plants. I'll talk about a little bit more about these pots and what we're going to do. But my idea, kind of creating a little bit of an outdoor cottage garden. Now these are not going to stay outside because I'm in grow zone 5-6, so it gets really cold and icy for 4 months out of the year, 5 months out of the year. So I have to take them in. But I thought, wouldn't it be cool to do like a cottage planting, but with like unusual plants, like plants that you wouldn't normally see in a cottage planting. But I got these beautiful pots and I want to talk about them because I want to support family owned and operated businesses. This is Pottery. It's out of the UK. So it's a little bit expensive because you bring them in, but look at this cute little bird on there. And I also got these pot feet. These would be good for indoors and outdoors because you don't want your pots sitting on your floor, especially if you have a wood floor. Like I have a wood floor in Brooklyn. And I wish I knew more about pot feet. Like there's so many different types of pot feet. These are like obviously cute little birds. These remind me, Saunder's off camera. This reminds me of the little bird in the basket, the little robin in the basket. It looks exactly like that.
It does.
It's so crazy. I mean, it looks...
I'm surprised it's gonna get. It does. We'll show a photo.
Yeah, we'll show a photo. There was a little robin that came out of a nest and Saunder was mowing the lawn and I was like, no, gotta get that bird. And there's like a little basket nearby. And so we took a photo of a bird in a basket and took it out of harm's way. But yeah, this is Pottery. I think these are the same. And basically these pot feet sit right under it. And this is what it's gonna look like on the patio and indoors. And so you basically get 3 of these in order to make a even triangle so it could sit up there. Yeah, so I'm going to repot these. And I mean, how many times have you gone into a store and then you look at a beautiful full plant? It was grown in like top-notch greenhouse conditions, which is never the conditions that you're growing in indoors. And you're like, that's a beautiful plant. I want it just like this. And then of course it kind of starts to grow gangly, or you have it in a south-facing window and so it's growing lopsided to one side. That usually happens. But I figured I would give these the time of their life outdoors. And what's interesting about both of these plants, you see this is flattened stem. It has chlorophyll in it. So I don't think this actually gets leaves like this one. You'll notice that this one has tiny, tiny little leaves. But morphologically, all of this is stem. And during the dry season, the leaves will fall off. So it's, believe it or not, it's deciduous. Doesn't look like any of our deciduous trees here. So It's unusual morphologically speaking, but maybe not that unusual for Madagascar, which has all different unusual types. So the leaves fall off and it's no big deal. It's just going through its dormancy, but it could still gather light through the chlorophyll. Now, some of the pencil stick cacti get like a very red tip, and that is a specific cultivar as well. But normally these are totally fine to repot. You could see, I have some dead bits right here, so I'm going to be cutting those off. And I noticed when I pulled this out, I actually got some of the latex on me, and that is basically the rubber white-like stuff that comes out of the sap that comes out of the plant. You'll hear lots of different noises. We got frogs, we got Canada geese today, a chorus of them. The beauty of being outdoors in nature. I love it. So I have my little snips here, and you want to make sure, and I can't recall if I cleaned my snips or what snips I even used after I worked with that aloe. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of isopropyl alcohol and clean my snips, because if that bacterial or fungal rot from that aloe was on these snips, I might unintentionally harm these guys here. So I'm just gonna clip these off because these are some of the dead bits. I might as well get them out now. And you can see these almost like this powdery crystal coming off. And that's probably like the oxalic crystals or something that are just dry and falling out. That's some of the stuff that if an animal eats it, it causes gastronomic distress or could even like kill somebody. It's like these tiny little crystals if you maybe looked under them under the high-powered microscope. So otherwise, these have just been sitting in a pot. I don't even think we watered these since we got them. And that's what I love about Euphorbia. Like some of the plants that I still have in Brooklyn are my Euphorbia, not all of them because I brought some of them here. And what's great about them is that I could leave them for 2 weeks and they don't really give a crap. Got a little millipede in here, I'm gonna knock him out, but I've had these outside for a little bit to acclimate already. Very peaty. So, but I'm going to give these guys a bit more perlite because, and I am gonna put my gloves on because if I do break something and then just errantly wipe my eyes, I'm gonna be going to the emergency room. So that's what I was mentioning with the latex. It's actually highly toxic. And I've known some folks who've gotten it in their eye and had to go to the emergency room. And sometimes you can get contact dermatitis from it. So let me bring this out and show you the roots, show you what I'm seeing. Oftentimes we don't repot our plants and we don't get a chance to really see the roots, but it's a good healthy root system. It's not pot bound at all, it's nice and soft. But I am gonna add more perlite, any kind of, like if you use any kind of drainage, any of these I'm gonna take out because I don't want them sitting in there and rotting. Anything that you could use for drainage, especially if you're gonna leave this outside. I mean, we get, I don't know, like 40 something inches of rain a year. It's quite a lot. And sometimes it comes in a real downpour. So if you're planning on leaving this outside on your fire escape or your patio or anything, do yourself a favor and give yourself a little bit more perlite. So I'm just gonna add that in there and add whatever I have left. I'm also gonna fertilize these because it's spring and I'm feeling springy, and I'll be fertilizing them as I water them in because I don't know what fertilizing they had. They don't need much, obviously. And if you don't fertilize them for a year, it's not gonna be the end of the world, but you should still fertilize your succulents. Initially when I started, I was like, oh, you don't need to fertilize that much. But then I met a lot of succulent growers and they still fertilize. Just adding, this is gonna be about half perlite. Now sometimes you could like wet the potting mix in advance. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna water it in afterwards. But if you go back to the aloe video and I will link to it there. I think what happened is because the aloe was so full, just like these, it was extremely hard to water the aloe, and somebody probably watered the aloe on top like a bromeliad, and then the water was sitting there and just started to rot the plant. Whereas these, you still have space to water. But part of the reason why I'm repotting them, yes, I'd like them on the patio and I don't like these black plastic containers, but part of the reason is because I want to be able to water them a little bit more easily. I want them to be able to spread and breathe. Now you can see this one, this is broken. That's the latex I'm talking about, that shiny white sap that's coming out. Okay, take a look at this potting mix. So it's much more well draining. It's not too dissimilar to what, because this is that was a peat base. You could use a coconut coir or things like that too. But what I'll tell you is if you do that, make sure you soak it in advance. So sometimes it's an extra step because sometimes it's too salty. All right, so I'm going to put this in here. Just like that. And I'm gonna have to fill it in with some of that potting medium. And I'm gonna have to line it up with the bird. I'm gonna rely on Sonder telling me, is that nice? Is that a nice front?
Yeah, you got that arm coming off on the right.
This one is not good?
No, it is cool.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you have it so the bird's looking at it.
Is the bird looking at it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I think that looks like from the back, it's not as impressive because this is going to be facing the back. So you are going to want to do a front. Now, this is just kind of coming off right here. This is a way to let it sit out and stick it back in the soil again. So that is one way to really propagate it. You know, but you'd want to let it harden off for a bit. Almost looks like a green bean. I end up using my hand anyway. It's like kind of like how I ate spaghetti as a kid. My mom showed me how to use utensils and I just preferred to eat it with my hands for a long time. All right, so. And this will settle as well. So you just want to make sure, you know, in a few days come by, because it is a fluffy mix. In a few days you might want to come by and say, oh, it's settled around the edge. So, and the root ball is sticking out. Let me add a topper. And I ran out, but I usually will use the Espoma Bonsai mix, which I love. It's like this puffed slate and clay. It's got a nice tone to it. It actually matches the terracotta very nicely. And I'll use that as a topper. And especially if I'm leaving these outside, you don't want the sun to kind of cake bake the top of the soil substrate, and it somewhat prevents chipmunks, if you have them, from digging in there. But I met somebody in Philadelphia. We did a home tour. You might remember the Jazz Singers home tour. I'll link to that here. And she had an outdoor area, and to prevent the squirrels from coming and eating their food, they had a bunch of spiky euphorbia and cacti that they used almost like a briar patch, almost like a living fence. And because these are really distasteful, and in some cases, not these euphorbia, euphorbia is a vast family of plants that have way different morphology from one another. Some of them are quite spiky. You can think of even Euphorbia millii, which is quite common. You could find that in grocery stores. The squirrels didn't want to even go near it, which was awesome. So she kind of figured it out. Okay, I'm going to do a quick fertilizer on this. Mix this up, a nice organic fertilizer, nothing too strong. I'm going to do half. Have that mixed in. All right. And I'm just going to water this in. See, this is what I think happened to that aloe. Somebody just watered right on top of it. And this is what I wanted. I wanted to get sides. I wanted to have the ability to be able to move the leaves or the stems and to water it. I'm not going to water it so thoroughly. I'm going to water it in place because I don't want it to just completely pour out onto this table that I'm working on. All right, so I have this next one. Some of it's already pre-mixed, but I'm going to need more because it has, these pots are quite, I think it's a nice size for these plants. They have a nice depth to them, so the roots could still grow down. The other thing too about using terracotta outside, especially if you're going to leave these for outside for part of the time, is that it wicks away moisture very easily. So if you have a plant that wants to have a bit more moisture or wet feet, then you may not want to put it in a terracotta, or you might want to put it in a terracotta that has a glazing on it so it maintains some of the moisture. But for this, which wants to dry out readily, terracotta unglazed is a really good option. Okay, so this one, again, looks very similar. So funny because I picked up the aloe. Sandra was getting renovation materials, plumbing materials or something. It was taking a long time. And I went to the plant section as I naturally do the garden section. This one's a little bit tighter, unfortunately, so I have to work this a bit more. And the first plant I picked up was that aloe. And that's the first one that died. And then I went back and I was like, maybe the Euphorbia are pretty cool. And I have one of these already, but it's not as full and structural. And so I was like, I'll pick that one up. And then I was like, kind of want this one, because then I started thinking, wouldn't it be cool to have these as patio plants? And these get to, I didn't say this, these get to be trees, which is so unusual because like trees don't look like this around here. You think about like an oak tree, a maple, even like some type of conifer like a pine or spruce. But if you didn't grow up with these in habitat, they look so alien. But these get woody. They get like a big wooden trunk, and then these are basically the stems and the leaves, and it's the most bizarre thing ever. So I'm gonna tap into this bag. I'm just gonna use all my resources today. Now I think I have a big bag of perlite somewhere, but I might forego it and then just rely on the last bits of this because I don't have that much to fill up. I'm also glad I got this picnic table at auction because I really needed a good working table to get messy. I hear a duck quacking. That one male is chasing the female. There's been a little triangle, love triangle of at least two mallards and this female mallard and on our pond, and we've been following the love story. It's very juicy. Okay, so let me just fertilize this one while we listen to the ducks sing their love songs. The drama that happens in the springtime here. So I think this is looking good. Let me come up on the other side. Oh yes. Oh, these are gonna be really cool. So unusual, you know what I mean? Like a cottage planting, and people are gonna be like, what's that? You know, sometimes we'll take our colocaceas or whatever and plant them out in a pot, and they're treated like annuals. Well, I'll have to bring these in. It's been tough kind of bringing in some of the plants because the places are going under renovation, and I'm going to be doing a lot of spring cleaning with the plants because, you know, now that it's warm, I'm going to be bringing them outdoors, and right now they have drywall dust. They have like, they've been in construction zones, so I think they're going to be happy to just get outside, spread their leaves, get a bit of sun. But one of the things I should say, if you're bringing your plants outdoors, make sure you acclimate them. Like this is going to be on an east-facing patio. I didn't want it in direct, even though these can handle direct sunlight. If they've been indoors for a long time and they've just been in kind of like medium light and not in like full direct light, even if you have it in full direct light in a south-facing window, sometimes that window cuts the light pretty dramatically, and all of a sudden you put it out in a high intensity light area and then the plant just gets burned. We had that happen with the Sansevieria snake plant, which you think would be able to handle some of that light. But anyway, so we're gonna put the pot feed on, we're gonna put on the patio, but I think this is successfully a project that is done.
Stay tuned here for more progress, plant tips, tours, and plant-filled hangout sessions here on Plant One On Me. And if you have a second, hit the like, subscribe, and notifications button to share your love for the channel. That helps us grow and share our videos to more folks like you. And if you want a deeper understanding of plants, head over to homesteadbrooklyn.com to check out all of our online houseplant courses and offerings, from the 125 houseplant care spreadsheet to the Houseplant Masterclass. And we'll see you in the next episode.